Welcome to the Chorus in the Chaos podcast. My name is Jack, and I am joined, as always, by Blake and by Grayson. And if you're listening to this or watching this, you have tuned in to the Eighth Commandment episode, You Shall Not Steal. But before we jump into that, just a couple housekeeping items. Guys on the podcast, if you're just listening to this on Spotify or Apple or whatever podcast platform, if there is an ability to leave 5 stars or some type of review, please do that. It really does make a difference. If you're watching on YouTube, please leave a comment. All these things help other people find the podcast. And I just want to take a moment. If you've been listening for a while, you've probably heard the little sponsorship ad we have at the beginning of the podcast. Reformation Heritage Books has been awesome. We're prior to them, doing a sponsorship with us, we were believers in them. All of us have a lot of books on our bookshelves that we have purchased from Reformation Heritage Books. So just a shout out to those guys. And I think, Blake, do you want to give a little, because we're coming near the end of this is number 8. We're doing 10 Commandments. Do you want to give a little teaser about the season 4 theme?
Well, we didn't talk about this. How much of a teaser do you want?
I'm thinking 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, right. Well, I'll say this. Season 4 is knocking at our door. And, no? Okay. Never mind.
That's a bad
Season
joke.
4 is knocking.
Yeah, no, we got
Oh, it was a rhyme. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
No. Season 4 is on cults and false religions knocking on our door.
It's a Mormon joke. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So season 4, we're very excited for. We're going to be covering all kinds of crazy stuff. The American cults. We're going to be looking at histories of the individual cults: Jehovah's Witness, Christian Science, Mormons, all kinds. We might even squeeze in some popular local cults like the Bhagwan Shi-Ra niche here in Oregon. It's a fun story. All kinds of interesting things.
Episode by yourself, I'll tell you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's a bonus episode.
Yeah, that's the episode that only I do.
Jack and I'd be like, what?
Yeah, we don't want to. Yeah, right. Come on, guys, don't act like you don't have local cults where you live.
Well, we actually do. We've got Haunted Cosmos just did the Beast of Bray Road.
Oh.
Yeah, well, I mean, cheeseheads are a different breed of their own. That is a cult, actually. Yeah. No, I'm teasing. Yeah. Maybe I'm not. You know what? Tune in to season 4, you'll find out.
Yeah.
But Haunted Cosmos just did a episode on the Beast of Bray Road, and one of the comments I had made on there, I was talking with somebody back and forth, and I just said, look, I actually live near Elkhorn. I'm pretty close. I mean, it takes me all of 20, 30 minutes to get there. Wisconsin, on the state statute books, still has laws providing for animal sacrifices for the occult.
Like allowing it or prohibiting it?
Oh, allowing it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's some
this is like beyond grilling brats and things like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can grill brats. You can also grill brats. I mean, that's it's like, do you shoot a furry or is that the Beast of Bray Road? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in Oregon there's actually a prohibition of shooting Bigfoot. Like you can't.
Is there?
Yeah, like if you shoot Bigfoot, you get in trouble.
Tell that to Johnny.
Yeah.
Good luck, buddy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, you know who you are.
So when we were talking about this beforehand, Jack said specifically he wanted this episode to be 45 to 60 minutes, and we're already 4 minutes in. So next season is about
pure
cults.
Banter.
Join us then. It's going to be great. We're excited. We're going to be working on that all summer long. It's going to be.
Let us not steal any more time away from the podcast.
Blake's door knocking joke's not funny, but Jack is funny. Yeah. Anyway, whatever. So, I'm out of here.
Eighth Commandment, key text, very short text. Exodus 20, verse 15. You shall not steal. 4 words.
Yep.
4 words. And I want to say, as we jump into this, once again, thank you to our good friend Tommy Watson for his book, The 10 Commandments. He gave me permission to say that. And it's provided a lot of background and structure really for this whole season, but for this outside, I thought just the structure, it's very simple structure, but I thought it was a very helpful and very logical way to go about looking at this commandment. And if you're a note taker, The structure, what we'll look at is the seriousness of the sin of theft, causes of theft, kinds of theft, and then we'll wrap it up with how to avoid theft.
Yep.
So to kick things off, Blake, Grayson, have you ever been stolen from?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Did you
my
like
wife
it?
Stole my heart.
Ooh. Ooh.
It's great. That was the greatest sound I've ever heard Grayson make. I'm gonna make that my text alert.
Oh, Bobby.
Oh man. All right.
So the year.
I'm sorry. Okay, no more jokes. I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm done with jokes. I'm playing.
Blake, the year is now 1993.
Yeah.
And
I'm all but 5 years old.
I'm 10. I live in Kilgore, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And all I want for Christmas is a mountain bike.
Okay.
There are no mountains in Kilgore, but I want a mountain bike.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
I wake up on Christmas morning bustling with excitement because there, with a bow on it, is a white Huffy mountain bike.
Wow.
I was so excited.
The Huffies, I mean, those were the primo bikes in that day.
They were. So I was so excited. I rode the bike all over the neighborhood, and the next day or two, I rode it as much as I possibly. I was so thrilled to have it.
Mm-hmm.
And I, like a good boy, I put it in the garage. Well, one night, and this is like less than a week after Christmas. I don't remember how long, but it was roughly a week, maybe less than a week. Single-digit days away from Christmas. The door of the garage. Why are you shaking your head and smiling
this is
like
brutal.
that?
This is already hurting me.
I know.
Because I thought this was going to be I
There's
left it in the yard.
Some kid that's riding around a white Huffy.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's mine. There's no way, buddy. This is the only white Huffy in the neighborhood.
No, I put it in the garage where it was supposed to go.
Yeah.
And the garage got broken into.
Oh man.
And they stole my mountain bike. And to this day, I long for that mountain bike. I miss
to this day,
bike.
I still pray imprecatory prayers over that man. right.
What? Every
Happy
day I
as
wake
he
up.
smashes your bikes against the rocks.
Yeah.
And it's extra brutal because you did what you were supposed to do. You put it away.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like one of those life lessons like, well, you shouldn't have left it in the yard, Jack. You can't do that again.
Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
Man. That hurts.
Yeah,
that hurts.
It stinks, right? And I think theft is it's another one of these sins that I think everyone knows it's bad. Like we've talked about respectable sins, and then small sins, big sins. Like we talked about murder. There's common, everyone around the world is like, yeah, murder is bad. Adultery is bad. Theft is bad. It's another one. It's just widely accepted.
Yeah.
But I don't think a lot of people give a lot of thought to the kinds of theft, which I think will be an interesting discussion.
Mm-hmm.
I think the seriousness of the sin of theft can be downplayed a lot because it is a very common thing. Obviously, there's big theft and small theft, right? But there is a very seriousness of the sin of theft. I'll share one other story that happened to my wife's grandfather, and this is 100% true story. Okay, he recently passed away, but just to put it on scale from a mountain bike to other, right?
Yeah.
He was selling he had a very wealthy man. He had a condo in Florida that he put up for sale. And apparently when you sell $1 million condo, never done that, but when you sell $1 million condo, you go with the other person and you go into a room and you sign all the paperwork and they wire the money like right there. So he was selling, there was some other gentleman in the room.
Yeah.
And he was getting ready on his computer to send the million, whatever the amount was, 7-digit amount to him. And as he went to go do that, he got an email that said, we sent you the wrong link. Here's the correct link you need to use. So he clicked that link.
No.
And he literally sent $1 million+ to some guy. Like, who knows? By the time they realized, hey, we didn't get it, what happened? It was like 15 minutes later. They went and looked, and that money had been bounced around to like 9 different banks. At that point, it was gone. I mean, it was absolutely gone.
Yeah.
So
I have a story as well, a short one. So when I worked at the school district,
did you lose more than $1 million?
No, this is a story of somebody else losing their money in a very, comical way. Sad, but still comical.
I'm still reeling from the house sale thing.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to process this.
This was similar. So there was a guy, and he was a teacher at the school I worked at, and I'll leave it to your imagination what kind of a teacher he was based on this story.
A good one?
Sure.
Will they be making a Hallmark film about him?
No, never. But one day he got an email from somebody saying, your bank account needs some, basically there's something wrong with your bank account. We need you to log in, do this, do that.
Yeah.
Well, he logs into his bank account, sees everything is fine. And at the same time, he gets another email from this guy. And it's basically the guy asking, okay, I need to, make sure everything security-wise is set up properly as it should be. So, well, I can't access your account. Can you share your screen with me? And can you type in your password into this, protected link, blah, 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 blah. The guy does it, and he immediately clears the bank account.
Mm.
And it was something like $60,000-$70,000. So not $1 million, but quite a bit for a teacher.
Yeah.
And this teacher then says, oh, the bank account just got cleared. And the guy on the other opposite end of the phone says, oh, that must be a mistake. Well, do you have any other bank accounts that I can log into?
No.
Oh, my goodness.
He says yes. So he logs into his savings account that he and his wife are on. And then the guy clears that one too, of course. And finally, when everything kind of clicked and he realized he was being scammed, is when the gentleman said, well, if you get a bunch of prepaid cards,
send us some
like
Walmart
gift cards and stuff like that, and send me the information, we could, probably wire it back. And I remember, so I was the HR and payroll guy, and he asked me that day, is there anything that you think I could do? I'm like, no, you are...
Call the FBI.
I was like, that's it. But it's some guy in Iran that has just taken all of your money, and never click on a link like that again. I'm sorry. But it's the same thing. I mean, there's that violation, even though you can look at it and laugh and think like, oh boy, that's dumb. There's still that violation where it's wrong, right?
Yeah.
In the world, we should never have to experience these types of things. And that's a fundamental truth or reality, whether somebody's stealing $1 or $1 million, it's fundamentally evil.
Yep.
No, I got to tell a quick story real quick. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Jack.
No, we got to keep...
I'm sorry. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was in high school, someone smashed out my truck window, which cost me $250 to replace, for a $30 CB radio.
Oh,
I was
that's brutal.
I should have just left my truck unlocked.
Yeah.
Like, please just take it. Just take it. Here, I already cut the wires for you. Yeah.
I had some similar thing happened. I was
devastating. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I had back in the late 90s, early 2000s, we had those giant CD books. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I had one of those. Someone broke into my car and stole like my collection of CDs. They broke the window and it was devastating. But anyway, all that to say,
they left his mixtapes though, his burned CDs.
No,
they're like,
can you imagine what a burn it would be if they went through and pulled your CDs out and just put it on the... Like they sat here and went through it? That hurts.
They judge my music?
Yeah, right.
They left the one that says it's not just a phase, Mom.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's not just a phase, guys.
It's a way of life.
It's
Jack's
a way of life.
Spicy summer mix. Yeah.
That was the best one.
Throws it on the dash. Yeah.
So theft. Theft, I would say, is three things. When we think about the seriousness of this thing, we're kind of joking around, the sharing stories. I from when I was telling Blake before we started, when I was 4 or 5, I got caught stealing a package of gum at Walmart. My mom found out in the parking lot, made me walk back in and hand it. That scarred me for life.
Oh my gosh. I had the same thing happen, except there was a cop there. Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. I don't want to derail things further.
No, you're good.
Except there was a cop there and it wasn't bubblegum. It was his wallet.
Yeah. No, it was his,
and I was 19. But
yeah.
That's not the same at all.
And he shot his gun that I took, and not a big deal.
Theft is a serious thing. We're kind of joking around, but whether it's a pack of gum or $1 million condo or wire transfer or whatever, right? Theft, fundamentally, I would say, is three things. It is very serious because it's a violation of divine law.
Mm-hmm.
We've read the text. It's a violation of human dignity. If you've ever been stolen from, you feel violated in a way, right?
Right.
And I'd say it's a break of the social trust of a society, right? It is a theft destroys relationships within a society. And the sin, again, everyone's going to say stealing is bad, right? And the sin is addressed many times in the Bible, and few, if any, would argue that stealing is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're the person, one of these, some prince from Nigeria.
I would push back on that a little bit, though, because the secular mind always has
they'll excuse it.
Excuses of where it's acceptable, you know.
Yes.
So stealing from the rich is acceptable. You know, stealing from cheating on your taxes is acceptable. I mean, so it's the same thing that they do with murder. You know, like people would say
but they don't like being stolen from.
Well,
no,
yeah,
of course not.
Of course
but
not.
Yeah.
That's the point of hypocrisy is
yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not treating others as you want to be treated. It's let me treat you in ways that I don't want to be treated.
But that's where they deny that fundamental, I think, distinction Jack brought out: a violation of divine law, human dignity, and social trust.
Mm-hmm.
So they might say, doesn't really fit into divine law because I reject that anyways. Human dignity, well, these people aren't quite worth that. Social trust, I don't really trust them, and they steal from me, therefore it's acceptable. And so there's ways they can excuse it,
right?
But at the fundamental level, it doesn't change those categories, and I guess that's what Jack's getting at, is at the heart of it. No matter what, there's a fundamental violation of those principles, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I would say too that theft kind of piggyback on what you were saying, Grayson. You know, theft, where there is excessive theft and just constant theft, it destroys a community and just chaos ensues. Like, as I was typing this up, I actually thought about you, Grayson, and one of the common things that happens when chaos is reigning, right? When there are a lot of fires and riots and things of that sort, one of the first things that you hear about is looting, right? And I'm not saying one is a direct cause of the other, but I'm just saying that theft is when chaos is king, when chaos is ruling, and there's no chorus.
Yep.
Huh?
Yep.
That was a joke. It was good.
Yeah. I'm still trying to figure out where I come into play here. Like,
I was thinking about where you live back in the
when you were there during the
2020 riots.
You were looting all those TVs and the
right.
Well, yeah, I was burning down businesses.
We were watching Fox News.
Working
Is
with
that
Antifa.
Grayson?
Yeah. No, but
it's a mostly peaceful protest, guys.
Right.
But you were in the middle of I forget the name of the town that it happened in
Kenosha.
Wisconsin. Kenosha, thank you. Yeah, but you were in the middle of Kenosha. It was all over the news because there was fires and looting. And
I lived 2 blocks down from where the altercation actually took place. So literally that night, Antifa's dropped off in my yard, and so it was a SWAT team, and crazy, crazy time. But I remember just being vehemently angry, and as I was driving to work the next day, I'm looking at buildings burned down and windows smashed in, places that were looted, property destroyed. Arguably, that's another form of theft, I would say, is when massive amounts of property are destroyed, right? Because there's tangible value there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But I was livid at the whole situation because I'm watching not only my hometown in that circumstance, but just the injustice of it. Right. It's like, so the whole cry was justice, no peace. And it's like, so you're going to go into the downtown area and destroy Black owned businesses in the name of justice for a man who quite literally was a rapist. And I mean, it's like there was all sorts of stuff wrong there, but the sheer amount of destruction and theft that happened as a result because of opportunists that came in, it's just another thing.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It destroys social order. Right. And I think the Old Testament recognized that too, right? Aside from the Exodus 20 text, just the command, you shall not steal. Exodus 22, 1-4 gives an example of that. Blake, do you have that text up by chance?
Exodus 22, 1-4.
I'm sorry, 1-4. 1-4.
Or do you want 1-14?
1-4.
Okay.
We don't need to go that long. Yeah.
we don't got time for that. If a man steals an ox or a sheep and kills it or sells it, he shall repay 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. If a thief is found breaking in and is struck so that he dies, there shall be no blood guilt for him. But if the sun is risen on him, there shall be blood guilt for him. He shall surely pay. If he has nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. If the stolen beast is found alive in his possession, whether it is an ox or a donkey or a sheep, he shall pay double.
Yeah.
So the whole theme of and this is a whole complex, like if you think about like theonomy and things like that, this is a whole complex system that gives rights to the victim, restitution that hurts the criminal. So it's not simply paying back a 1-for-1, but there's an above and beyond aspect to restitution as well.
Yeah.
One of the things that we think about, though, with the theft issue is like, well, how bad is theft? Jesus equates the thief with Satan in John 10:10. So to be a thief and to take things that do not belong to you is fundamentally satanic. It's an evil act. It violates God's divine law. It violates his holy character. The thief comes only to steal, Jesus says in John 10:10, and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full.
Yeah.
So one of the greatest villains in all of Scripture, Judas. What is Judas described as? I mean, besides the son of perdition and the betrayer, he is described as a thief. In fact, in John 12, we see that he is the holder of the money bag, and that he had been skimming through the ministry of Christ. I mean, he's supposed to be one of the most trusted, obviously holding the money bag, and instead he's stealing. He is angry about the woman who anoints Christ with the expensive fragrance. And of course puts up that air of spirituality, like, oh, this could have been sold. This could have been
What about the poor?
Money for the poor.
We could have had money for the poor and all of these things. But the Bible says that he said all of this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief, and having charge of the money bag, he used to help himself of what was put in it. John 12:6.
Yeah. Arguably, I mean, you can even look at that and say, when we go back to the creation account, that stealing was the reason why all of humanity has been plunged into sin and death and despair. Right? So what happens? But God says, you shall eat freely of everything in the garden, save one tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And yet Adam and Eve took of that which did not belong to them. So they stole, they ate, they were deceived, they coveted, they took what was not theirs, and then ultimately we see they pay the ultimate price as a result of that. And all of humanity, therefore, does as well. So this is not a light thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And consider this. There's some serious warnings aside from these examples we have. I mean, the fall of mankind, pretty big example. Judas, pretty big example.
Yeah. Satan himself.
Satan himself,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not good company, right?
No.
But Scripture says that thieves do not enter the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah.
And notice the company. Listen to this text. Notice, and it's kind of because it's a list, and thieves are in here, but listen to the company that thieves have with them. 1 Corinthians 6:9-10. Or do you not know that the unrighteous will not inherit the kingdom of God? Do not be deceived. Neither the sexually immoral, nor the idolaters, nor the adulterers, nor men who practice homosexuality, nor thieves, nor the greedy, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor swindlers will inherit the kingdom of God.
Yep.
Yeah. So in summary, just to make the point, whether it is a stick of gum, whether it is a package of Milk Duds, whether it is
bonus
a
content.
Bonus content. whether it is sneaking into a movie that you didn't pay for, right? Whether it is breaking someone's window and stealing a car stereo, or $1.2 million condo that you, whatever.
Or a brilliant white Huffy.
Or that mountain bike, which
if
you took it, there's still chance you can make restitution.
All of a sudden you find
Jack is long
on your doorstep one day.
Jack is willing to forgive. Just return the bike. No questions asked.
Yes. But the point is, it is a serious, serious sin. It is not a small thing. It is not a small thing. Mm-hmm. Theft is a very serious sin. And even though most would say that stealing is wrong, it remains a big problem in society today. I mean, we just noted several examples. All of us get emails all the time of scams. I get text all the time of scams. The new one, I think, I've gotten several of them where they tell me I have some unpaid toll bill. That's a new one where they're trying to take, scam you and take money.
Yeah, the toll bill, or you get a package delivered, or whatever the case is.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of
stuff.
Click
on this link to view your tracking info.
Porch Pirates is a new thing where people take Amazon packages.
Let me hit you with this, Jack. Let me hit you with this. I think I found the solution to not being a thief.
Don't steal.
All you need... No, not that. All you need is to be really wealthy. Surely if you're really wealthy...
If you have enough money,
you're not going to steal.
Because that's why you got to steal to get the money, right? Yeah.
That's exactly it. Right.
Well, there's an interesting trend among wealthy people to steal because it's fun, right?
Right.
There's a famous example. It's it's a little dated in that it's 2000 and 2001. But Winona Ryder, I can't think of what was she in. She's been in.
Stranger Things is probably the most recent.
Oh, yeah, that's the most modern thing. She's in Stranger Things. She's been in all kinds of stuff.
Beetlejuice and the original Beetlejuice, I should say.
Grayson's a big fan.
Yeah, apparently.
He's like, let me list off her filmography.
Girl interrupted.
Actually, I've got a really interesting side story about Winona Ryder.
But interesting. I mean, she's very wealthy. The point is, she's very wealthy. Well, in 2001, she was caught shoplifting over $5,000 of merchandise from Saks Fifth Avenue in Beverly Hills, and she had to do a whole bunch of stuff. So she could have bought the stuff. She had all the money in the world, but she chose to do it because it was a thrill, right? So it just goes to show it is, aside from the Nigerian prince sending you an email, it's everywhere. It is a no one wants to be stolen from, but the prevalence of the sin of theft is widespread, and it is very, very serious.
Yeah. Right. And despite what the culture might say, I mean, when that happened, I think it was a big thing of like, let's push mental illness and say that she's a kleptomaniac. She's got a problem, right? Instead of, I mean, if you want to put it in those terms, it's like, sure, she's got a problem. It's called sin.
Yeah, sin problem.
Yeah. And that's really what kind of brings us to our next section, though, is, what causes theft, right? So is it
because it's not just a socioeconomic thing.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Right.
When we get down to it, the most, Jack, you had a great note here. The most common and natural cause of theft is unbelief. Really, when you boil everything down to it, I mean, a man who steals is a man who does not trust God's providence to provide. But he's also the man who doesn't trust that God is the one who's able to provide either. So it's not just the fact that God is your provider and that you're struggling, you're going through a really hard time. Really, it boils down to that heart of unbelief of saying God is not one who actually does that to begin with.
Right.
Yeah.
It's fueled by covetousness also, because it's not even just in the category of, I don't believe God's going to meet my needs, but there is an aspect, probably this Winona Ryder aspect, or kind of approach of it being fun or this, that, the other thing, is that simply it could be, well, maybe not in her situation. I'm kind of backpedaling now, but it could just be a covetousness issue as well. Yeah. That it's not that God won't provide for me; it's that God is not good enough to give me the things that I deserve. Yeah. Therefore, I will take it for myself.
Yeah,
or the things that I have are not good enough.
Yeah,
right. I mean, that aspect of it too is. Right. I'm not content. And so you can look at it, and there's all sorts of different sister sins that come alongside with it. But all of them stem down to unbelief at the end of the day. It's a radical departure from who God is and what he has said. And I mean, for the unbeliever, that's very easy to identify. And so what Moses is doing, though, in the law is identifying the person who does believe. And that's, I would say, the double whammy. Right, there's this internal violation of the God that you know, and yet have rejected.
Yeah. There's this innate desire, or just not desire, but this innate lack of faith, inability to trust God, doubting God's love and ability to care for people. Psalm 78 describes this person. Listen to this text, Psalm 78, verses 17 through 19. Yet they sinned against him yet they sinned still more against him, rebelling against the Most High in the desert. They tested God in their heart by demanding the food they crave. They spoke against God, saying, can God spread a table in the wilderness? And these are the Israelites.
Right.
This is the thing. I'm like,
provide a, you know what I mean? Like,
you have a pretty decent theology of what God can do at that point, because you just witnessed the plagues and everything else, and you're like, yeah, but can God really just provide a feast in the desert? I don't think so. Abraham, I don't
think he can do. Yeah. So it's rooted in disbelief. I mean, it is a sin issue, right? It is a doubting of that God can do it. And as Blake said, there's covetousness. There's this, and we'll get to that in the 10th commandment, but
that'll be a whole thing in itself.
It'll be its own thing, right? It's the heart of it, of looking at it and saying, I need this thing that someone else has. I have to have it as mine. Right.
Yep.
Right. So those are some external reasons. And I put a third one in there. I think ultimately the sin falls on us. But there are cases where there is an external force of temptation pulling people in. We mentioned Adam and Eve earlier. Eve was tempted by the serpent, and she took the thing that she wasn't to. And then it says very specifically in John 13:17 that Satan entered Judas and persuaded him to steal and betray Jesus. So I would say that's the rare thing. Like it can happen. I think more often than not, stealing happens because of disbelief and covetousness and things of this sort. But we do see that the sin of theft is
I think when you're talking about, and you also have to be careful when you're talking about like demonic influence and satanic influence. What you're talking about is the inflaming of a desire that's already there.
Correct. Yes. Yep. It begins in the heart.
Yep.
And then Satan takes advantage of that. So, okay. So what kinds of thefts are there? So I think this will be more of kind of an interesting part of the podcast.
Yeah. I wish Tommy was able to join us tonight, but he wasn't.
He was busy. I called him.
Yeah.
He's busy worshiping.
He's like, no thanks, I'm in glory.
Yeah, he's in glory. He's got better things to do.
Also, quit trying to talk to me. That's a sin. Sorry, Tommy.
I am not Tommy. Part of that great cloud of witnesses that people butcher that text on. So please stop.
But number one, there's a lot of different kinds, and I wouldn't say that this is an exhaustive list, but we're highlighting some things that may be helpful or honestly maybe convicting in some ways, just to help you continue to evaluate in full transparency.
I will say ahead of time, I love this list because a lot of times we get into categories of all the things that we talked about, and I'm sorry for all the people that hate banter, for all the banter in the beginning. But the things that we talked about at the beginning, we think about people stealing gum and bikes and cars and money and things like that, where this list really puts a different kind of twist on. I would assume that our average listener is not out, stealing cars. Probably not.
I hope they may. No, wait.
Just say, I hope they are.
And as I started that phrasing, if you are, I'm glad you're listening. That's what I started saying. Not that I hope you're stealing cars.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Too fast, too chaos.
If only.
Yeah. If only.
Yeah. The average ITC listener was stealing automobiles.
Grand Theft Auto.
Was it Gone in 60 Seconds? Was that movie? Nick Cage?
Yeah.
He's done so many.
Winona Ryder was not in that.
I was scrambling trying to think of her name. Who was that? This is going to be a funny joke.
Wouldn't that be a great meta joke if I was able to come up with a car theft movie that she was in? I don't know her films that well. Sorry, I failed.
Was Winona Ryder?
Yeah. Somebody in the audience is like, it's this movie.
Yeah.
So there's several ways that I would say you can steal from God. So again, we've kind of established the stealing of property. That's very obvious, and we'll touch on that briefly again. But there's different kinds of property. But let's start back at the beginning and go vertical. Stealing from God.
Yeah,
stealing from God. So we did an entire episode or 2 episodes, I think, on the 4th commandment. And one could argue, and Tommy Watson argues, and I would agree with him, that not acknowledging and properly celebrating the Lord's Day robs God of his due and is spiritual theft. The day belongs to the Lord. It is not a day for you to just go do whatever you want. There is it is defined by God and belongs to Him.
Yep. So there's certain duties of the Lord's Day, which we talked about. You can go listen to those episodes. This is something we've talked about extensively. We probably don't need to rehash it here. But that is something to think about, giving the Lord what is due, His glory on the Lord's Day. How about not tithing? When we say tithing, we're speaking, of course, of what a lot of people would classically understand as tithes, but also that free will gift and giving, if that's your
we say tithe, and some people automatically get their hackles up, and they're like, tithing's an Old Testament practice.
Right. Don't get hung up on the semantics. Okay. We're talking about giving. We're talking about giving.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. One of the things in Malachi 3:7-10, and this is again classic passage because it gets to the heart of the issue. From the days of your fathers, you have turned aside from my statutes and have not kept them. Return to me, and I will return to you, says the Lord of hosts. But you say, how shall we return? Will man rob God? Yet you are robbing me. But you say, how have we robbed you? In your tithes and contributions. You are cursed with a curse, for you are robbing me, the whole nation of you. I mean, this is there's no way to hyper spiritualize this. This is a financial issue. They're supposed to be giving. And of course, in their context, they're supposed to be giving to the work of God, the upkeep of the temple and all of those things. And they're not doing it. I would ask you, dear listener, to consider, beyond the argument of tithes versus a free will, giving and things like that. Just ask yourself, could I be characterized as a generous person? Could I be characterized as a person who is giving and who does not hold money so tightly that I can't give it away? When is the last time? I mean, just a few questions to ask. Am I giving consistently and regularly to my church? We're not talking about amounts, but am I giving consistently and regularly? Am I giving sacrificially, which is another biblical principle? Am I supporting the Lord's work in my local body, or am I just a consumer? I mean, these are all questions to ask that are not just man to man. It's between you and God as well.
And if you want to look at it and say Blake's focusing only on his local church, right? So he just wants more money coming into the coffers. I've actually told people at our church, tell you what, why don't you just not give to our church at all? And
I would never say that.
No, I mean, I've actually, so I've said it though, because there was an accusation that came up at one point of, you just want more money. Right. And I said, that's why I'm, getting paid the big bucks here as pastor.
Right.
That's why my family struggles all the time.
Right.
You're right.
Yeah.
But anyways, I actually looked at them and I said, tell you what, why don't you just look at your finances and you tell me over the last 2 years how much you've given to all sorts of different charitable organizations that you believe in. And they had next to nothing to show for it.
Yeah.
And so
I bet they give they roll up to the nearest dollar when they go through Taco Bell to
at Lowe's.
Yep.
You want to figure out whatever it is. Roll up 75 cents. Yeah.
And but my point there was okay, so you want to make the excuse, but really you have no heart of generosity. And
right.
When push comes to shove,
was it Ravenhill? Was it Ravenhill that was famously said, show me a man's wallet, I'll show you his heart. Something
Ravenhill or Luther, one of the guys.
Probably like maybe a million guys.
One of the guys.
I said just tonight, actually.
One of the boys.
Yeah, one of the boys. Yeah. Right. How about stealing from others?
Yeah, that should be
stealing from
obvious
God,
category for us, right? But think of all the different ways it can actually creep up. We don't think about this in our day and age. So time theft, Jack, I thought this was an excellent one that you put down here. Right, we've got the obvious examples we talked about in the beginning of stolen property.
Huffy bikes,
car radios, soda cans. But think of time. When you are at work, are you wasting time taking excessive breaks? Are you taking a long time to complete your tasks at the job? Are you sitting around the water cooler and gabbing with the people?
Have you read the statistics of the length of bathroom visits at work since the popularization of the smartphone?
It's got to be
it's mind blowing. I can't remember off the top of my head.
An hour and a half or something like that.
It'll be worth finding. It'll be worth finding and like posting in the links. But basically, what correlates with the smartphone is people like tripling the time in the bathroom at work.
Yeah. Yep. The bigger, I mean, obviously,
got to play Warhammer 40K with the boys.
You have to make sure that you talk with your supervisor at the end of the day, because some jobs are different, right? You can go to a job. I had a job like this where their mentality quite literally was, as long as things get done and I don't ever have to hound you, I am content with whatever else you do. So I could write
more of
papers
your salary
and stuff
position.
Like that.
Yeah.
But there were days where I would have maybe 2 hours of work and I was expected to be there for the full 8 hours. And so for the rest of the time, I was actually free to study. I actually talked with my boss. He was a superintendent, and I said, "Hey, do you care?" And his response was, again, "I don't want you to make me look bad in any way. I want you to do your job well, and as long as I don't have to ride your butt, then you do whatever else you want, but just make sure it's done." I've also had other jobs where they say, "I don't care if you have nothing going on, you pick up a broom and you sweep nothing." Yeah. And that's what it really comes down to, is whatever the case is at your work, do what's expected of you. And some will be a bit more free than others, but at the end of the day, you want to be in obedience to your supervisor because you are working unto the glory of God. And if they give you a little bit more freedom than somewhere else, great. If they don't, then
just don't abuse that freedom.
Job, it's like don't abuse that freedom, but also if you don't like that, then go find a job where you have that freedom. You have options.
Time theft is real theft.
Yep.
Yeah. Was of course that gets into the whole 2020 working from home thing. Yeah. There was a article I read a few months ago. I think I actually sent it to you guys about the mouse movers that you can buy from Japan. They basically move, it's a mouse movement that shows on your boss's end. It looks like you're working and that your mouse is moving. And some guy in a company bought like every single one on the market, and they picked up the patterns and found that like 60% of his at-home employees were using these mouse movers to simulate that they were actually working and things like that. So just wild stuff like that. Time theft, things like piracy. Oh man, this is convicting because I think about middle school.
Well, I think of when I first became a Christian.
Yeah,
this is how bad I was. I literally used LimeWire to download and pirate all sorts of different Christian music because I was like, this is the best thing I could do.
Right.
I'm just gonna steal from all these Christian artists.
Yeah, you're just learning. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I look back and I'm like, you stupid man.
Yeah. You guys want a story? A really good story? I don't know if I've ever told you guys this. So about that same true story happened to me. I don't know if I've ever told you.
Oh, I have heard this one.
I think Grayson may know it.
Yeah, I do.
So this is 100% true. This is about that same time. So this is early 2000s. I couldn't tell you. I guess I was probably 2002 because I think I had just turned 18. But LimeWire was the thing, or Kazaa, or whatever, the Napster, whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
And I learned that you could download movies, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Right. So I downloaded like 3 or 4 movies, and they had sat on my computer for a long time, right? I did it as kind of a novelty and forgot about it. Later, I found out through similar thought, because I was a brand new Christian, and I thought, that's probably not right. So I went and deleted it and didn't do it again. But Disney had scanned my, this is at the time where they were going in and scanning hard drives and stuff. And they scanned that I downloaded the movie The Incredibles and sued me for $100,000.
Yep.
I have never
That's a legit story. Yeah.
It's a true story. It's a true story. Now, and it was like the day I opened that mail, I was like,
just being
like, I was like, my life is over. Like, and I went, by God's grace, I was working part-time filing at a law firm. That was my part-time job. Yeah. And the guy was a believer. And I went and showed it to him, and he was like, I'll take care of this. He knew it was like ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I ended up settling and paying like $700. That was like the settle.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Right.
But
it was weird because they wanted it in Walmart gift cards. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. No, this really happened. And I was
that's wild.
Yeah. And
I've never heard. I think you're the first person I've ever heard of all the people I've ever known that have pirated things, which again, like middle school, like early 2000s. I mean, that was like all over, kids were doing that in the school that I went to.
Well, there was a brief period of time where
actually been like,
I think since then it was determined illegal. It was an invasion of privacy for them to go scan hard drive. And now people like do it widely. But there was a brief period of time when this first started where they were just doing that. So anyway,
the wild west piracy of the internet. Yeah.
Yeah, think about that.
But
I mean, there's simple ways it happens too. In our modern day, like we don't have Napster or LimeWire and stuff like that anymore, though you can still get stuff online. But think of it in terms of like sharing your Netflix login.
Yeah.
Right? They clamped down on that, and a lot of people were not happy. But they
also,
have
if you have Netflix, you're in sin. So there's that too.
Yeah. Well, as long as it's not Disney Plus, right, Blake?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I would wager that
I don't know.
there are a lot of people listening.
I got no Disney Plus. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't use that because I'm not a liberal.
Yeah, I don't use that.
I would wager there are a lot of people listening to this who are using someone else's login for some streaming service or something like that. Right? It is extraordinarily common. But listen to Romans 13:7. Listen to Romans 13:7. Paul writes, pay to all what is owed to them. Taxes to whom taxes are owed, revenue to whom revenue is owed, respect to whom respect is owed, honor to whom honor is owed. Yep. Like, people will often rationalize this stuff and then, Disney makes plenty of money. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yep.
Like right. They say things like that.
They do. It's like, don't get me wrong. Trust me, they are making buku bucks.
Yeah, they're not going to miss here $8.99 a month. Like they're not going to notice.
But what's the command?
But what is the command? Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Right. So, but piracy, I think, is pretty widespread now. I mean, software is so easy. People crack. I work in the software business in my day-to-day job, and we have license compliance stuff all the time where people illegally download software, and we have to politely call them and be like, hey, you owe us a lot of money.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you've stolen this, right? But so software, ebooks, so on and so forth. I mean, with digital media, like everything is pirated now at some level.
Yeah. Well, what about like plagiarism too? And especially with the modern advent of AI writing.
Yeah.
Too,
Oh man, we haven't even
AI is
our society
right. The things
this
circulating of what's happening like at the college level of paper writing and things like this, and well, even in the high school levels of just it's going to reach a point where it means nothing because it's all fake. It's just if you can if you can run AI and AI can write a paper for you.
So the interesting thing, I read a few different articles there was all this talk about AI probably 6 months. I mean, it's continually being talked about, but like 6 months ago or so, there was a massive influx of different people writing on it. And essentially the way AI works is that it's literally stealing from others to begin with.
Right. That's true. I never really thought about that.
It's whether it's artwork or different, things that are published online or books and everything else, it's quite literally just taking that work without attribution.
Right.
And you can argue, okay, they didn't attribute properly in different times and epochs and all that kind of stuff. It's like, well, today though, we have these laws and customs and
this is why Jack wrote his least post-mill article about the dangers of AI.
Oh yeah.
One of my favorites.
Is AI going to conquer the world, essentially?
AI is going to bring us all together, guys.
Might.
AI is going to destroy it. Yeah. It's going to bring us all together because we're all going to die.
Kill it. Yeah.
I won't.
And there's your pre-mill.
Yeah.
Cheating on taxes, of course, that's another one that people will feel, again, like, oh, well, taxation is theft, so I'll just steal back from the government or whatever,
Yeah.
Again, it's those things. It's the justification for theft is one of the most perverse aspects of theft.
Yeah.
Because even Christians will say stuff like this.
Oh, yeah.
Not returning borrowed items or keeping items for an inappropriately long amount of time, where somebody has to come and ask you back, for their item back. I mean, it's just, if you borrowed a book and not returned it,
How many listener do you have borrowed books
that's
on
our
your
first
shelf?
example. It's like, hey, have you borrowed one of my books?
You got a borrowed book on your shelf right now? Yeah.
You're in sin, buddy. Bring it back. Yeah.
I think I seem to remember something about Jack and the Silmarillion.
Yeah, Silmarillion. So, true story. This is a good story. We've told a lot of bad stories.
He had to correct the pronunciation because
and he has to keep reminding us.
How did you just say it, Blake?
That he's telling the true story. I'm not going to say it again because you guys just
he's clearly never. He's never read Lord of the Rings.
It's because you're an uncultured swine. That's okay.
I've read it twice. And I didn't understand it both times. I'll say that.
Yeah. The Lord of the Rings.
No, Lord of the Rings. Yeah, that one.
I was just like,
so back in.
I read the Hobbit, and I still was like, what?
Yeah, I have yet to make it past Bilbo's birthday.
right. We get past Bilbo's party. Too intense.
Yeah. Done.
So Silmarillion. So I got this copy of the Silmarillion back in college. All right. So back 2005 or whatever. Yeah. And I was in a band with a guy, and he asked to borrow it, and I let him borrow it. And I completely forgot about it. Like, I knew this book existed, and I'd often thought, I wonder where that copy of the Silmarillion went. But over time went by, and I completely forgot about it. Well, last year, he reached out to me. And by the way, he lives in like Hawaii now. He reached out to me. He's like, hey, I need to return this book to you. And I was like, what book? And he's like, the Silmarillion. You lent it to me in 2005. And I was like, are you serious? And I have like no memory of it.
That's awesome.
And he was like, yeah, I just want to do the right thing. I've had it for way too long. Great book. Thanks for letting me borrow it. And he mailed it to me, and here it is. So it's never too late. That's the moral of the story. It is never too late to return that book.
So maybe you're here and you've stolen a white Huffy bike. It's not too late to return it.
It's not too late. You can return it. I will write it.
Yeah. That book was a prime example of the forgiveness that flows out of Jack. So just so you know.
I mean, I unfriended him after he sent the book.
Right. Also sent him a bill with the back fees.
Yeah.
Right.
Can you imagine if the guy sent it and you got it was like a postage due type of thing?
Yeah.
Or they show up to the door and they're like, you owe us $36 for this.
Yeah. It costs a lot to send from Hawaii.
Return to sender.
But the point of all these examples, right? This is not an exhaustive list. We could, if we sat here long enough, we could come up with a dozen other ways that someone could be stealing, right? Mm-hmm. So we don't want to do that, but what we wanted to do is provide some common examples and encourage you as the listener to really think through ways that you might be intentionally, maybe unintentionally, unknowingly stealing or pursuing something dishonest, right? Mm-hmm. Again, the Lord's command, the sin of theft is very serious. God commands us not to steal. So we all should be diligent to examine our own lives and look to prune these things, repent of the sin, turn from it.
Yeah. One of the things I love is the positive force of the command. So it's not just don't steal, because Ephesians 4:28 says, let the thief no longer steal. Okay, so there's your prohibitive, but then there's a positive outworking, but rather let him labor, doing honest work with his own hands, so that he may have something to share with anyone in need. So there's that whole heart transformation. So it's the prohibitive aspect, but then it is the, put your thieving hands to work for good that's honest, so that not so that you can, just buy all the things you want to buy, but that you will actually have enough to help anyone that's actually in need. I mean, that is that's a beautiful transformation that is brought about by Christ. True repentance is to give instead of steal. Someone who wants to avoid stealing then should make their focus to supply others with what they lack. One of the greatest ways to destroy the hold that money has over you is to give it away.
Yeah. Yep.
Give it away. You have to practice a spirit of generosity, and you will find quickly that does more for you than the tight grasping.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And notice too, we talked earlier about how theft is an attack against the society. Like it's a disruptor of society, like the way society is supposed to function. And Christianity and living out the Eighth Commandment is a way to improve society, right? Theft destroys, but to give and seeking out the needs of others and being generous, looking for ways to take care of other people in need is a way to give to society. So it's a building up of community, which I think is very cool. It's a very positive, beautiful aspect of the commandment.
For sure.
Yeah. So Tommy Watson again gives us a very wonderful quote on Ephesians 4.
One of his top quotes, I think.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
So he points out this need to proactivity of doing good and warns that the devil hires idle hands. An idle person tempts the devil to tempt him.
Yep.
So there's that positive reinforcement or that positive aspect of it of saying it's not just so that we often think, okay, how do you repent from stealing? You just stop it. And it's like, well, no, you work hard. So you're no longer the idle man who steals and covets so that you may give.
Yeah. Yep. Don't be. I remember years and years ago, Piper had this question put to him by like some young guy, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but it was basically like, I can't stop sinning. Like I've got all of these areas where there's just sin and all this stuff. And Piper's advice was get a job and work really hard. And in your spare time, just read through a systematic theology. Yeah. And you won't have time to sin.
Yeah, it's like get busy.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Read a systematic and work, and you won't have time to do all the things that you're in.
But there's very practical advice there. It's some young men need to hear it, where they've just got so much idle times on their hands that they look at things and it's like, well,
and not just young men, old men. I mean, think about like old retired guys.
Retired men,
and retired men and women, and people that are unemployed, people that aren't working, people do all these things. The more idle time you have, the more trouble you're going to get into. That's almost just a universal.
It's a principle truism. That I find in myself, even at this age, where the busier that I actually stay, the better off I typically am, because I'm not getting myself into trouble half the time because I've just got things I have to do. Yep. And as much as I rue having to work all the time, I'm thankful for it and grateful to the Lord for it, because I can be just as foolish a man as anybody else and get into trouble just as easily.
Yep.
That is true, guys.
Definitely.
I added this to the outline a little later, but I thought it was so good I decided to footnote it in. But the Heidelberg Catechism, listen to what it says. Question 111. So we've talked about the forbidding. That's pretty clear. Mm-hmm. But it says, what does God require of you in this, the Eighth Commandment? What does it require of you, Christian? That I further my neighbor's good where I can, and may deal with him as I would have others deal with me, and labor faithfully so that I may be able to help the poor in their need.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah, it is really good. So the other thing that you want to do if you want to avoid theft, so live out repentance. We talked about that, what that looks like. Don't be idle. We talked a little bit about that. And another thing, and this is such a, it's a rare jewel, I might call it.
Yes. I understood that reference.
Yep. But seek biblical contentment.
Yeah.
We've done a few episodes on this.
Christian
contentment?
Christian contentment.
Christian contentment. Same thing.
Well, you went halfway there with the joke, and then you didn't land it, brother.
The rare jewel of Christian contentment.
Yes. Thank you, Blake.
So we've done a few episodes on this on the past, and it's one of my. I love the subject. And again, the rare jewel of Christian contentment by Jeremiah
Burroughs.
Burroughs, thank you. I blanked on his last name for a second there. Jeremiah Burroughs, one of my favorite books. I read it every couple of years. And we've done a few episodes of this, so I'd encourage you go back and find those if you wrestle with contentment, because it's well worth listening to and looking at some of these resources. But one of the things that he points out, if you wrestle with theft, if you wrestle with this desire to take things that don't belong to you, learning contentment in what God has provided you is an incredible way to do that. And he points out that it is a learned behavior. Paul says this. Paul says he's learned to be content in all things. So you can learn and study it. Contentment, biblical Christian contentment, recognizes that in Christ, our greatest need has been met. So whether we have very little or very much, our greatest needs been met. That's okay. God knows better. God is sovereign, and he's provided there what I need. Therefore, it calls us to trust God. Remember, we said one of the main causes of theft or stealing is this fundamental distrust that God is able to give me what I need. Contentment is the exact opposite of that, right? Contentment looks at God's providential hand. It acknowledges a deep trust in God to provide whatever I need. And it is a learned behavior. And and I love the title of that book. It's a rare jewel. It truly is a jewel in the Christian life. The Christian who begins to grasp and understand contentment, it is life-changing, truly life-changing.
Yep. Well, think of all the different ways you can be discontent. And we all have them. We have discontentment that we can find in the ways that I would be discontent would be different than each of you. And the same goes for my wife and our children and various different people that you meet. Everybody has, their own itch to scratch, so to speak. Yet when it comes down to it, the reality is this goes hand in hand with this command to not steal. Again, covetousness, we're going to talk about later when we get into that as well as the final commandment, but they're so intimately wed, it's hard to divorce the two.
Yeah.
And we're trying very hard to keep them separate today just because of that. But contentment really is the cure-all in one sense of being able to say, I can come before my Maker, content with all that he has given me, trusting him in every providence that he gives. John Owen talked about the providence of God being like many different streams of water. And his point there was that there is not one stream that will ever fail. And so in whatever way that shapes out, not only in God's sovereignty and how he orchestrates every minute detail of our lives, but actually provides for us, there is not one stream that gets blocked up or stopped by the, beaver's dam, so to speak, or turns foul or stagnant. Every bit of it is yes and amen in Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, we'll find and see all these different channels of water and how God is, in the grand orchestration of all things, provided for every one of his children.
Quick side note, I just looked it up real quick. So on Reformation Heritage Books, little plug, you can buy the Rare Jewel Christian Contentment for $7. And it is nothing. Definitely worth $7. So
I'm content with that price.
Yeah. This has been the Chorus and the Chaos. Yeah, right. Yeah. It's good.
All right, guys. So that's the Eighth Commandment. I thought, why don't we close out? I've got a few quotes that I gathered here I'll say some quotes and maybe then we'll have the theme music come in. But before I read these, any final words on the Eighth Commandment?
No.
Okay. So I'll read 3 quotes here, and then the theme music will come in. And thank you for listening. John Owen, in Sermons on Christian Ethics, said this. He said, "Sin is never at a loss for excuses, and theft is often baptized under the name of necessity or cleverness or survival. But the law of God cuts through all pretenses." Herman Bavinck, in Reformed Dogmatics, says that the Eighth Commandment does not merely protect private property, it requires the proper use of wealth for the benefit of others. Talked about that. And then finally, Kevin DeYoung, in the book we've referenced a number of times, 10 Commandments, his book on the 10 Commandments, says the Eighth Commandment calls us to more than just not stealing. It calls us to hard work, share generously, and to handle our money with integrity.